Welcome to Second Saturday. My name is Professor Alfonso Severos. My guest today is Mr. Damien Tillman, a writer, poet, and educator. Damien, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here at the show. Let's begin with your membership in the New York Writers Club.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about this organization, your role in it, and what is the purpose and goal?
So the New York Writing Club began about 2 years ago. When it originally was created, I wasn't a part of it, but the organizer, her name is Ray, she decided to create a meetup for writers of all kinds to come and ask questions, meet other writers, build their skills, and work on things, just, a writing community. I joined about April of last year. By the time I joined on meetup.com, Ray was no longer the organizer. She had two other members take over because she left New York and she went to London. She actually started a London version of what she started in New York. The people who took over were Cindy and Karuna, two people who, when I joined, I met and we got along really well. And me having a background in writing and education, while I was going to their meetings, I was just there participating and offering any assistance if I could. They would ask questions like, how do you think this went? And how do you think the workshop section went? And I would sometimes make suggestions, not a lot, just offering my 2 cents when they asked. And after a while, there were times when we met, and we had about 50 people show up, and we were, really crowded. So it's very hard to workshop. Like have an open workshop with about 50 people in a room, there's things going on. So, I made a suggestion of maybe we split them into 2 groups, and then maybe I can help lead the workshop for one group and you guys can lead, and we can switch around and just organize them that way. So that was how I kind of started getting involved in the operational side of it, just assisting where I could, and just trying to take the burden off of Cindy and Karuna, who were doing a lot at that time, and so that worked.
Tell me about the membership. Are these people who are actually published writers or individuals who are interested in writing? What is the group composition looks like?
The group dynamic is so varied. There's under the age of 18, 17-year-olds, all the way up to potentially 80-year-old writers that I've met through this club. There's no limit to who can join. There are published writers, there are professors, there are musicians, there's artists, there's people who self-publish, people who have like deals, young adult novelists, all different kinds of writers of any kind. People who are writing academic essays, blogs. They all come and they just share and talk and
so
discuss things.
it's set up in which you guys will meet and critique each other's work. Is that the way the process goes?
Well, it's set up in where, whoever's a part of the group, they can sign up to come to an event, and we meet about every 2 weeks on a Saturday, and we sit down, we do like a few writing prompts, we discuss usually a main topic of the day. So one of the last topics we discussed was pet peeves. So it was just kind of us talking about the different things that we are kind of annoyed and bothered by when we're writing or reading other people's writing. So it's just to get a sense of how we feel about writing in general. And then also I had an exercise where we wrote a letter to the pet peeve that we had a problem with. And a lot of the people ended up saying positive things. So it wasn't a bashing letter, it wasn't angry. And they started to look at it as these pet peeves, there's some positives in it. So even though I don't like this or this may bother me, I could see the benefits of it. So
it's an exercise in reflection.
Right, exercise, reflection, and then there's also a workshop section where you can get up, get the floor, share your work, ask questions, field questions, get critiques, and then just, improve on
So
whatever
it's
it
a
is
pretty
you want.
diverse group.
Yeah.
How often does this group meet?
We meet every 2 weeks on Saturdays. So we meet for about 3 hours. We met at different places. We were recently at this office space called ReadyWork, where it was just a giant office space they had. TVs and internet, and people could come and set up with their laptops. It was a very good space. I believe they're under construction right now, so we're hoping to go back there soon. And it was big enough to fit 30, 40 people comfortably, and it was a great space, and we enjoyed
What about
it.
someone who's interested in or currently a screenwriter?
Oh,
And they wrote a plot and they want to get feedback. Is this an arena for that kind of activity?
Yes. So what we do is when we have our meetings, people can sign up to share. And you can then, when we give you the floor to share, you can talk to the group and say, I'm writing a screenplay and I have a plot and I just want to share this plot with you, and I want some, you can ask for the kind of feedback you want. I want this kind of feedback. And then you read and we'll listen intently. Everybody's actively listening, and we'll try to give you the feedback or give you some questions that will help further what you're working on.
You're a poet. As a poet, have you found this process to be helpful?
Yes. In college, I was a double major. I took creative writing and media studies, so there was poetry courses I took, and the workshopping aspect of it I thought was really helpful, having more established writers, having people who may have not written that thing before me, and just everybody getting their perspectives and being able to cipher through the information and really look at what I'm doing and then hear how it's received by other people, I believe really helped me hone in on my craft.
Poets are usually, I know I do poetry.
I've heard.
A degree of sensitivity, especially about their work. And when you perform your work or you read before people, always in the back of your head there's, I wonder if they like it. Yeah. I wonder if they get it. I wonder what they think about it. Does that come into play when you share in an arena like this?
Sometimes. For me, I think it's a little bit different because I come from a family of 9 children. I'm the 8th of 9, so my mother had 9. And my older brothers and sisters, we could get on each other from time to time. So I got pretty thick skin growing up because you were being critiqued on any and everything you did, and it wasn't necessarily always a negative thing. It was just, that tough love that you get at times. And I think it helped me be more comfortable with who I am and being able to express myself without fear of like repercussion and things like that.
So if someone was interested in finding out more information about this New York Writers Club, what would they do? Go to a Facebook page?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, New York Writing Club. We also have on Meetup, we have about 3,700, close to 3,800 members. So if you go and search New York Writing Club, we should pop up. There's a picture and a description, and you can just, anybody's welcome to sign up for the group and just get more information there. We also have Instagram and Twitter that we're trying to roll out. So it's at New York NY Writing Club. So it's pretty accessible. It's very simple, very straightforward. And we're building that community just slowly but surely, building that community and just having people share resources, share ideas, and then having the meetings where people can have a more intimate, small group or a medium-sized group. Workshops and things like that where they can work on specific aspects of writing or get feedback on things that they're currently working on or their projects that they're completing.
Why poetry? What is it about poetry that seems to move you?
I write a lot of different things, but I currently have been focusing on poetry the most. It could be a bunch of different reasons. I do enjoy poetry. I've been inspired by poets from the past. Like most young black men, I've heard of Maya Angelou at some point in my life. I've read some of her work, Langston Hughes, some other very important poets, and I've read Shakespeare and things like that. I have a background, and he wrote a lot of sonnets and all these other things. But I think my interest in poetry really started from being a younger brother, looking at my oldest brother, Derek. He would write love poems to, some of his girlfriends, female companions. And I, as a younger brother, would sometimes sneak into his area, his bag, and look at some of the things he wrote. And it was just interesting to be able to see what he was doing. And, sometimes you look up to your older siblings, and I looked up to him being able to do these things and write these things. And it was cool and interesting. Also, growing up in a hip-hop era, you get exposed to rhyme and poetry and styles and cadences and then different rhythms and word play and things that you don't necessarily get from a basic story or from an essay and things like that, that can be more entertaining and interesting and, you know, creative in a way. So I liked poetry. I started trying to write it myself. I got interested in storytelling. My mother told a lot of stories. My older brothers and sisters, they were older, so they had experiences that they would talk about, and I would just sit there and absorb everything because I guess that's how I am.
Did you tell stories about your older brothers and sisters?
I didn't really tell many other people, but I heard a lot of the stories, and I just, you know, I was there. I would laugh. I would sometimes be scared depending on what the story was. I know a lot of stories. I don't necessarily share them all, but I do, you know, I touch on them in the book. Like in certain ways, you might get a sense of something that is a true story. You might get a sense of something that I've been through or something that definitely happened, and I think that goes into my writing because it can be personal at times, and
I can identify with
story shit, that storytelling style.
I also come from a large family, a family of 11 siblings, 12 with myself.
Right.
You have a book coming out.
Yes.
Tell us about the book.
So this is my first attempt at putting myself out into the world, and I wanted to make sure the way I present myself is how I want it to be received. So as a writer, I can be playful, I can joke around, I can have a good time, I can be creative, I can try things, but I also wanted to make sure that whatever I put out into the world is not taken lightly. So people aren't overlooking it, and people know that this is something that I'm really doing. It's not just a joke, it's something that I take really serious. The book is called Learning to Quote Myself. It's based around, you know, like a personal philosophy I started to develop from my childhood and growing up.
What do you want people to take away from this book if they read it? It's a collection of poems.
Yeah,
correct?
It's a collection of poetry. It's different things. You might get some really interesting stories about me, my past, family. I write a little bit about my mother and my experiences growing up with a big family. I write about things that you may deal with abstract ideas, love, heartbreak, relationships. But I also talk about a few things that affected me growing up that I saw every day, like homelessness, poverty, police brutality. Growing up in Brooklyn, almost every child has a story that has to deal with the police. And it touches on a lot of different things.
Social issues.
Yes.
Why don't you share some poems?
I have a few. I could share one or two.
That'll be great.
I don't memorize my poems yet because I'm still working on them. And
I'm the same way. Once I write it, I let it go.
Yeah.
It's no longer mine.
Yeah,
I can't recite any poem that I've written, and I've written quite a few.
And I've read some of your poetry. Have you ever read on your show?
No.
Why not?
But this is about kids. Let's
try to redirect that.
Yes. It's not working, but
So yeah, I'm gonna load this up and I'm gonna grab one or two. And
which poems are you gonna read?
I have this one poem called Countermeasures, and I have another one called Park and Lex that's actually inspired by a Langston Hughes poem called Park Bench. And it's not necessarily the same exact poem, but it's the feeling, the idea surrounding it that I really feel like it was an inspiration in that way. So
many young writers and poets are inspired by the work of Langston Hughes.
Yeah. I think it was, in school, you're not introduced to all of the writers. You're introduced to some of the most famous and popular ones, but their ability to influence large amounts of people is always something to be respected and to take note of. So I think that also his work spoke to the generation. So it can speak to all people, not just the people who was
he had a way to be complicated yet simple. And I like that style. If poetry can't be understood, then forget about its purpose and meaning.
I agree with that.
It needs to be, and especially if you're addressing the general audience. If you're just addressing academia, that's a different ballgame. But the general population, you want them to understand it, to feel it, to process it and think about it, and hopefully have some impact.
Yeah, I think that's a part of the poet's job, is to try to balance the complications, the wordplay, the creativity with being able to actually convey the message that you want to convey, and have it be received not just through the ears but in the heart, and just, you know, really feel what's being shared. Because there can be long written stories that people get engaged in, but poems don't have that 300-page feel. You have a short amount of time to really capture the person that you
so
are.
Each word becomes important.
And that's one of the things I think that really drew me to poetry, because I do think every word is important, and everything we say has a meaning and matters. And that's one of the theories behind learning to quote myself, is really being able to make use of my words.
I understand that. Because we tend to write how we think and how we talk. And I went through this process. I'm still going through this process of getting rid of the excess words. I don't need them. You know.
Yeah.
But let's hear this poem.
All right. So, which one would you like to hear first?
Your choice.
All right. I have Park and Lex. So, she takes leftover caviar, portobello mushrooms, and fresh breadcrumbs to feed Park Avenue pigeons. I false start out train doors, late for Professor Levy's class, dash past dog water bowls placed outside of restaurants in affluent neighborhoods decorated with hungry people. Marathoners who are always outside, treadmilling the sidewalk, legs weakened, without a home to walk to. And they, ask them yourself.
You captured part of New York City.
Yeah, this, you know,
Lexington and Park. Is that the Hunt? You're talking about Hunter College area?
Yes, that is where I went to undergrad.
Okay. I had a picture as you were reciting that poem. I had a picture in my head. Yeah.
I'm hoping that, you know, when other people read it, that they get that picture, or at least they'll be able to get a sense of where. Yeah.
Great. It's a great piece of work. I like short poems myself.
Me too.
I'm not one to. I can write long poems, but my preference is short poems. What motivated you to write this particular poem?
That professor, Professor Levy, she was a poetry professor of mine in college, and I lived in the Bronx at the time, so I would rush. I was one of the people who would be 10 minutes late to class, so I would jump off the express train, the 4 train at 59th, and run to 68th Street where Hunter College was. So it would be me standing. I remember standing by the train door waiting for it to open, and then jetting out to try to make sure I wasn't 15 minutes late to class. So, and then running a few days running by, I did see, you know, homeless people. I saw certain things, and those images while running through to get to class, just, you know, they stuck with me, and it kind of inspired the idea behind the poem. And this is over 10 years ago that this was happening, but the poem still is there, you know. I never forgot the idea.
That's good piece of work. That's a great piece of work. Okay, you have another?
Yeah. I have another one, and it is called Countermeasures. So, I didn't know to keep the peace, you need to excel at aggression. Your Justice League has no heroes. If I unzip my existence, would you still? Batman has a belt like yours. He's prepared for anything. Your belt has gun, bullets, taser, mace, nightstick, flashlight, radio, batteries, gloves, pen, pencil, pad, cuffs, and sometimes knife. What are you afraid of? I only have my whole life ahead of me.
Well, that's obvious what that speaks to.
Yeah, yeah.
That is, I enjoy that. You have a particular style that I find pleasing.
That's all I could ask for.
And any event triggered that poem? Any particular event, or just thinking about situations in police in general?
I mean, not a particular event, but I've had experiences with getting stopped by the police. You know, they just stop and frisk. I do even remember one of the most, well, not the most recent one actually, but one of the more recent ones is the day I graduated with my master's. I was in a cab running late again. There's a theme with that with me.
I hope it's not cultural, but
no, not at all. Just with me. I was in a cab, and the cab got stopped by the police.
Yeah.
And they stopped and they came over and started asking me questions. I'm like, I have on a cap and gown. I'm going to get my master's right now. I just really would like to, make it there. So they call my name and my family can cheer me on.
Exactly.
And it's just, just the idea, and this was a few years ago when that happened, but, these ideas had been inside me since I was dealing with it. And I started to write this poem maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but now it seems to be more and more prevalent because of all the things that are being filmed. And these are things that I think has been happening throughout history with the police violence and things like that. But now it's being captured on film and being shared because we have this type of platform to be able to record and send and present it to the world very quickly.
So some of your poems have been written a few years ago. Are you the type of poet that will write a poem and put it away and that's it, finish? Or are you the kind of poet that will write a poem and maybe 6 months from now go back to it and sort of critique it or rework it?
Yeah, I think I'm more the latter. I definitely have poems from 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, but I have poems that I wrote.
That long?
I've been writing since I was a kid. Since I snuck into my brother's bag and I started looking at some of the things he did. I think that's when it really inspired me to start writing in my mind. I started just trying to figure out what it was and how I could do it, how I can do my own version of it. But
are you excited about this first book?
I'm very excited about it. I feel like I've been working on it for over 2 years, and I've been taking my time editing, reviewing, looking at things, even bringing some pieces to like workshops and sharing, getting critiques, and I really want to put out the strongest piece of work that I can put out.
Right.
And I think that's important.
I remember when we talked last week, and you told me it took 2 years to do this book, and I said, wow, 2 years. But then I thought back, my first book took 2 years for me to do. So it takes time, and then you have to come to some point of satisfaction and willingness to put it out there. Have you decided on how you intend to publish this book, self-publish versus any other form?
So one of the things that happened in New York Writing Club, we actually had an indie publisher come and speak to the group, and she spoke a lot about the publishing business at that moment, and I was lucky enough to sit down and have a little one-on-one with her, and I actually showed her my work last summer. Well, not this summer, last year's summer. And she was very interested in it. She said the words that I'll have your book out in 90 days if you want. And I was very, shocked, excited, and felt great about it. But I also had this one feeling that I didn't think the book was ready. And I told her I am, just humbled by your interest in me as a writer and my work. And I really want to keep this conversation going because I really want to be able to come and show you the best version of this that I can and really put it out there in that way. I haven't decided if I'm going to go with the independent publisher or if I'm going to look for a more established publisher or even self-publish. I'm learning more and more about the business side of it because I have a strong belief that like the starving artist moniker, I think it should be an oxymoron at this point. I don't think artists should toil and work for years of their lives and then put something out there that can be received amazingly and then not be able to find a meal or just struggling to survive and after doing all this great work. Because I know there are a lot of companies that make a lot of money off of young or poor or people of all kinds and who are producing great works of art. but they're not seeing their art being respected in terms of some type of financial recouping.
Is this something that you can do and be totally satisfied with your life, or is this something you can do and still work the 9 to 5 or other kinds of interests? How close to your very soul is writing poetry?
I think it's automatically a part of who I am. It's something that I'm always going to be doing, but I also have a strong background in education, and I care about educating young people, being able to give them truthful information, being able to address misconceptions. So I feel like it's just one part of who I am, but it is an important part. It'll never leave me.
Have you found a way to marriage the two?
I do work as a program director for an after-school program, and you know, I work with kids on their writing, creative writing. Sometimes I even, you know, have writing workshops with them, depending on what it is, and we can talk about social issues. We can also just have a good time, play some sports. We can talk about things that they're very interested in. I could share information that I've received based on, you know, maybe reading an article and things like that, and getting their take on it, and just being able to present information to people and being able to share that.
Damien, this has been great. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
And that's fine.
We need to do this again. I would love to have you back once the book is out.
Yes.
And
I would be honored.
That would be great. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I'll see you on the next second Saturday.